What's up, people? In this video, Angelo Carrion says, how about Layne Norton, who only believes in calories in, calories out? Sure. Wonder how long this video is. By the way, Carl Malott, this video is an hour, dog. Or 2 hours. I'm not doing any fucking 2 hour video reviews. As much as I would love to, because that video is very interesting, I think. But I'm not doing it. Like, no, sorry. It's like, well, what am I supposed to make a 10-hour video? No.
Yo guys, today, no wipe off board, but instead...
Oh, I will say though, that maybe if I were to do like a live or something, I don't mind to sit there and analyze it for like 6 hours, right? If there's actually like people watching, maybe commenting. But for me to record a 6 hour video, that's just, it's too much. So that might be something I'll do in the future. But anyway, intermittent fasting, does it really work? I wonder.
You can see these lovely medals. I used to do things with weights, not those kind of things that you're thinking about, but the good kind. Today, we're talking about intermittent fasting. I haven't pissed enough people off already, so I figured I'd talk about intermittent fasting since that'll probably piss off... Who have I pissed off? Vegans, keto, snake diet. Yep, intermittent fasting was next on my checklist. No, don't worry. I'm not going to trash intermittent fasting. In fact, for a lot of people, intermittent fasting has some really valuable uses. For some people, time-restricted eating enables them to create a calorie deficit without feeling really restricted. They would rather go longer periods without food and then be able to enjoy it more by having larger meals in a shorter time frame than trying to kind of titrate meals in all day. It also works really well for a lot of people who have really busy jobs. I know a couple of ER docs who love to eat with time-restricted eating because they just don't eat when they're on call and they have most of their calories in a short window. What am I trashing about intermittent fasting today? Well, not really trashing it. Like I said, it has a role, but some of the claims I'm seeing out there from intermittent fasting, get ready. You guys got your shots ready? Got your shots ready? Intermittent fasting zealots, take shot, are some really ridiculous claims. One of them is that intermittent fasting is anabolic, and fasting in of itself is anabolic because you increase growth hormone during fasting. Let's examine this, shall we? So, first off, the increase...
Yeah, so that's a misinterpretation of intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is not anabolic. Like, you're not like, I'm not eating anything, so my body's gonna grow. Like, what? who thought, like, what internet warrior like thought that was actually true? Yeah, no, wrong. Like, even just think about that, like, common sense. You don't eat all day and you're more anabolic somehow. No, opposite. You're catabolic. You're breaking shit down. Anabolic means growing, catabolic means breaking shit down. So, it's catabolic, which is why it's good. Catabolic has a bad reputation because people think it's just like breaking down muscle, but it's also breaking down fat. This also could be catabolic, right? And anabolic could also be building fat, right? Which is not good for most people. I'm sure he'll get to that in a second, but what did he say about liking intermittent fasting? And I'm guessing he's like lumping in like OMAD and stuff like that in there as well. It's like part of the whole intermittent fasting, being more convenient for people because they can fit. They have less of an opportunity to basically be at a caloric surplus because they have to eat in a short period of time. And there's only so much food that you can actually eat in one sitting. That's true. It is still possible to gain weight doing intermittent fasting. And I've noticed that if I do OMAD, right, I'll kind of always overeat a little bit, right? I'll always essentially be like 5 pounds, depending on my workouts. A lot of it depends on the type of workouts that you do. But with the equipment I have available most of the time, I'm always generally about 5-ish pounds above my like super max shredded ideal weight while doing OMAD. Okay, so like a little bit of occasional restriction is necessary to get that like super shredded lean look and maintain that indefinitely. I don't know if it's possible to maintain that indefinitely with like fucking 6 meals a day. I've never been able to make that work. But the thing with OMAD, like let's say you fast, as opposed to doing 48s, right? Let's say you only eat every other day. Pretty hard to be above your super shredded weight. Pretty hard. Also pretty hard to like put on muscle, as far as I know. I've never really tried it that much, but I would assume that like it's not easy. Fucking you eat once every 2 days if you're like actually working out and training hard. How are you going to put on muscle? That's like tough. You will maintain a very like lean, shredded look, all year, I guess, but that doesn't mean you'll be massive.
In growth hormone you get in response to intermittent fasting is what we call a physiological increase. So it's not a massive increase in growth hormone, but you do get a significant increase. But that's not for anabolic purposes. Growth hormone is also part of the fuel mobilization system. Now, it increases lipolysis. So since you're not eating food, you have to run on stored energy. And so growth hormone goes up to increase lipolysis, free up fatty acids. Let's assume you did get a big increase in growth hormone. Are you guys ready for the shocker? Growth hormone isn't anabolic. But it's called growth hormone, and look at all the IFBB pros who think, I don't care, it's not anabolic. There is a myriad of studies. I wrote about this all the way back in 2012 in an article called Growth Hormone, Great Expectations. There are not any studies that show increases in skeletal muscle mass, even when taking exogenous high-dose growth hormone. But Layne, there's studies showing it increases lean body mass. Yes, it increases lean body mass because they increase connective tissue mass and total body water.
Okay, that's interesting. The way he phrased that kind of made me wonder if it's just something they've never tested for. There's no studies that show that growth hormone increases muscle mass, right? He did not say there are multiple studies that show that growth hormone does not increase muscle mass. Do you understand? Like, on the one hand, there's no piece of paper, right, that says growth hormone increases muscle mass, right? That piece of paper does not exist, okay? Or there is a piece of paper that exists that says that growth hormone does not build muscle. Do you understand the difference? It's very subtle. I think he meant the second one, because as far as I know, growth hormone is very well studied, and they would have tested for not just, if you're testing for an increase in lean body mass and all this other shit you probably tested for with growth hormone, you're probably testing for an increase in fucking muscle size or skeletal muscle, whatever he said. I've never taken growth hormone, so I don't know. And I have taken what's called a growth hormone secretagogue, which is it's not exogenous growth hormone. Exogenous growth hormone means you're actually injecting growth hormone into your body. A growth hormone secretagogue is something that you take that makes your body secrete more endogenous growth hormone. So there's a difference. As far as like growth hormone still has a lot of really good effects. Just because it doesn't directly build muscle does not necessarily mean that it's not good. Plus, he's also like, it might indirectly build muscle, right? Like if you, for example, let's say you take growth hormone, and because growth hormone will generally increase your appetite, right? So if you take growth hormone and you work out really hard and you go work out, or no, I said that. You take growth hormone, you go work out, and then you eat a lot of food. You'll eat more food if you take the growth hormone, and that additional food might lead to an increase in skeletal muscle. Okay, so like, is it that the growth hormone itself is building the muscle? No. But it might be the other thing. As far as like the connective tissue and stuff like that, I'm not really sure. I haven't like checked that. Seems legit. And in general, growth hormone is very good for healing. Like it's kind of like this thing that like goes through your body and just like heals everything and fixes everything that needs to be fixed.
That's it. They don't increase muscle cross-sectional area. There's been several studies done showing this. So sorry, intermittent fasters, growth hormone, not anabolic. And let's just think about this logically. If fasting was anabolic, how would that make any sense?
Yeah.
People who were in concentration camps should be the most jacked people in history because growth hormone, bro. No, fasting didn't work out great for getting Gandhi jacked, all right? It's not anabolic. Now, what I'll hear from the other intermittent fasting, get ready to take a shot, zealots, is that, well, I got more muscle on intermittent fasting. I was doing intermittent fasting and put an inch on my arms. I'm not saying you can't grow muscle. What I'm saying is the fasting part of intermittent fasting is not anabolic. One of my final research studies that I published from my, get ready to take a shot, PhD thesis was a study examining protein distribution. We did 2 very low protein meals, or with 1 really high protein meal. They equated to about 15% of protein at breakfast, 15% of protein at lunch, and 70% at dinner, versus 3 meals that were about the same. What we found was, at the end of the study, that there was about an 8 to 10% difference in muscle mass. All the groups grew, but the groups that kind of equally divided their protein intake grew a little bit more. I'm not saying you can't grow on intermittent fasting. What I'm saying is having multiple protein meals spaced evenly throughout the day is probably better for anabolism. That's because protein has no storage mechanism in the body. It's not like carbohydrate where you have some glycogen that you can store, or fatty acids, which basically have unlimited storage in adipose. Protein has no mechanism of storage. You're either using it for synthesis, protein synthesis, or you're degrading it and putting it through gluconeogenesis and oxidizing it. If you can't store it, then if, for example, the max amount of protein where you max out the anabolic benefits is 40 or 50 grams, if you have 100, you're not getting extra benefit.
Okay, so that's very interesting. Now, a few things. Like you said, just because it is possible to grow while doing intermittent fasting. You won't grow as much as somebody who is eating several meals throughout the day of smaller amounts of protein. But it is possible to still grow, right? You might grow slower and you might have a lower limit as to how much you can grow, but that's kind of up to you to determine how big you actually want to get, right? Like I've said this many times, very hard for me to put on significant amounts of muscle doing OMAD. It's possible, but like I can fucking train with tons of volume and eat a lot in one meal and I'll grow, but not that much. You know what I mean? It's not easy. It's hard. Now that said, that doesn't mean you can't do both, right? Like this whole like bulking and cutting thing I think is stupid, where you eat at a surplus for fucking 6 weeks or 12 weeks or 24 weeks, whatever it is. I think that's dumb. Okay, that's not necessary. However, I think let's say if you do OMAD for, or let's do it the other way. Let's say you eat several meals a day for, 4 days or something. You're eating like multiple meals, lots of protein, building yourself, whatever. And then you drop it down to OMAD for 2 or 3 days, or you even fast for 2 or 3 days, right? You'll be at a higher point. Like you'll take, it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, or 1 step back, or whatever it is. I don't fucking know the exact numbers, but you're moving forward and then you drop back a little bit. Move forward, drop back, right? But I think overall the progress will be forward. I haven't actually tested that. I mean, I have a little bit, but generally when I test it, it's because I'm doing OMAD 99% of the time, and then I'll train so hard that like I need to take a break. And on my day off, I'll eat multiple meals throughout the day just to help myself recover from overtraining, which I'm not really even sure if that works, but I just feel like eating multiple meals because my discipline is shot because I've been training so hard. However, that actually, now that I think about it, that does sound like something that I would kind of like to experiment with as soon as I'm in a more, not in my box in Bangkok. So that's that. What else did he say? As far as like how much protein your body can utilize at once. I think because the general like wisdom in the bodybuilding world is that your body can only process like, the number that I originally heard was 30, but he's saying 40 or 50. Let's say 40. We'll split the difference. Your body can only process 40 grams of protein at once. Anything after that is wasted, right? I have absolutely no proof of this, but I think that like most other things in the body, that number is not set in stone. It varies from person to person. And not only does it vary from person to person, but it's adjustable based on how you live your life, right? So like if you live for an extended period of time and you're eating OMAD and you're eating 200 grams of protein in a meal, your body will naturally get used to metabolizing more and more protein. I don't know if it'll hit that 200, right? But you'll probably max it out at some point and get as close to that as your body's capable of getting, which makes it even more of an attractive idea to alternate your eating schedules, right? Let's say, for example, you do OMAD for a week or whatever, and you're closer to being able to, let's just say you can metabolize 200 grams of protein in a meal, right? That means, let's say you switch to multiple meals throughout the day, instead of only being able to digest 40 grams per meal, you can now digest 200, right? So you can take in much more, and because your body's used to digesting more, you can utilize more because you're training so hard to metabolize more in one single meal. Again, total bro science. I have no proof of any of that. That's just what I think it just makes sense to me, I guess. Worth trying, I think, for sure. Will you get as big as some bodybuilder? Maybe, if you take steroids. I don't know. I don't know if I'll take it that far in my experiment. I'm not sure. It's a good question.
From those extra 50 grams of protein, they're just, I don't want to say wasted because that's an improper term, but you're not going to get an extra anabolic benefit. So you're better off evenly distributing protein meals that hit that threshold but don't go way over it. What other people will say is, well, intermittent fasting is better for fat loss. There's been several studies looking at this where they compare intermittent fasting versus non-intermittent fasting with calories equated, and they don't see differences in fat loss. What one study saw was a slight improvement in insulin sensitivity compared to the non-intermittent fasting group. Both groups improved insulin sensitivity because they both lost fat. The group doing IF improved a little bit more, okay? So I don't really worry about that much, because if you're losing weight and getting healthier, you're going to improve your insulin sensitivity anyway. It's more about adherence. Now, if intermittent fasting helps you adhere to the protocol, helps you create that calorie deficit in a sustainable way that fits a lifestyle for you, then maybe it is the best diet for you. But in terms of physiology, it doesn't necessarily seem to be better than regular caloric restriction. One other word I hear is autophagy. Autophagy.
So before he gets into that, that's a very important point, that whatever the best diet for you is, the best diet for you is the best diet for you. Like, straight up. You know, there's a million ways to skin a cat. If you are organized and disciplined enough to eat fucking 6 meals a day and do it that way, and that's how you're like lean and in shape and fit, and you count all your calories and like you do all this other shit, if that's the best for you, if that appeals to you, then do that, right? Speaking from personal experience, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, let me eat 1 meal a day and like pick from like my 3 food groups and be done with it. That's going, because I know that if I eat multiple meals throughout the day, I'm going to fucking snack all day. You know, I don't have the discipline for that. I'm just not going to do it, and I don't want to think about it all the time. So that works for me, right? Whatever gets you the result is what works. So I'm glad he mentioned that.
Autophagy is basically a mechanism of breakdown of cellular components, okay? And this is associated with a few different health benefits. A lot of it's protein degradation, actually, which, by the way, not anabolic. That's actually catabolic. Autophagy may have some health benefits. Great. It's a buzzword right now. Thomas DeLauer loves it. But did you know that just caloric restriction by itself increases autophagy? So, again, intermittent fasting, not magic. However, again, if it's something you can adhere to, sustain, and use it to create a caloric deficit, maybe it is the best diet for you. As for me, I'll be enjoying multiple meals per day. But maybe it's right for you. Guys, if you like the video...
So that's not wrong. Caloric deficit, I guess, will also, you know, cause autophagy to happen, but there are some, let's call them like negative effects of eating at a caloric deficit for an extended period of time. One of them is, you know, loss of muscle, right? Which I've not done any studies on this. I don't know if there are any studies, but it seems to me that you will lose more muscle on an extended period of eating at a caloric deficit multiple meals throughout the day, as opposed to eating 1 meal a day or skipping meals entirely, like skipping days of eating via fasting, which seems to be more muscle sparing, right? So like, okay, autophagy might happen with both, but that's not the only variable that should be considered when you're comparing the two, in my opinion. So like, the thing with this guy is a unique combination of somebody who is an athlete who also has a PhD in science or something, or whatever he has a PhD in. And the reason that's unique is because most of the time, all this like exercise science bullshit and nutrition, whatever, it's coming from people that don't really have any experience with training anything. They just fucking isolate, you know, molecules in labs and test them on rats and draw conclusions without ever actually like having any idea what any of it actually means in the real world. This guy, I don't know if he's like an Olympic, looks like this is like, maybe he did some Olympic lifting or something. It's kind of, or powerlifting or something. These are bumper plates. So I don't know, whatever, Olympic lifting. I don't know what his deal is, but he's obviously an athlete and knows his shit and can say, you know, this does this, that does that. In my experience, this is better because when I did it, I did this, right? Eating multiple meals throughout the day, for me, very inconvenient unless I'm trying to be social. I can work it in there if I have to, but it's just inconvenient. I don't want to do it. I'd rather be lean anyway. Maybe mix it in with some full days of eating. More protein at every meal, but also somewhat inconvenient. Anyway, who told me to do this? Was this Ricardo or Angelo? Angelo, carry on. Thank you for telling me to do this one. If you guys have any other recommendations for videos or YouTubers you want me to take a look at, let me know. Leave me a comment. Peace.